do that. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Philip Alviano. So Philip has been employed as a Sustainable Building Advisor at the Master Builder Victoria for the past 15 years. And he's been working on buildings and construction related projects and research for the last 21 years. He has a lot of experience in education and training that informed the development of the national recognized sustainable construction training programs and the national rollout of the accredited Master Builder Green Living Program, really important one. And of course, he has received a fellowship from the International Special Life Skill Institute, which enabled him to travel to Germany. And of course, going back, we basically have done a lot of work to promote some of the best practice in sustainability in building. So I'd like to invite Philip.
Thanks very much, Tuan. I have been at Master Builders for a while, and I always like to say, when I started, we've got an office in East Melbourne as well as this one here. And the one in East Melbourne looks over a really nice park, nice windows up the front. And the industrial relations people and the health and safety people sat at the front of the building. And this strange environmental guy, they quite didn't know what to do with, had a room out the back that had no window in it. So that's where it was at that stage, and certainly it's changed in importance, since the time. And hopefully I've played a part in starting to change the mindset of the construction industry in that area as well over that period of time. So we're more accepting of the change. There are still sort of little bits and pieces that we need to iron out to make sure it works properly on site and it works with clients who sometimes don't get the answers we're trying to get to, but we're certainly working on that. So I just wanted to start a little bit with looking at the changes to the code this year and going through what the impacts of some of those are. So we've moved from 6 to 7 stars, so an increase in energy efficiency requirements. What we probably see, the likely result of that is the windows will get better. We need to move away from single glazed windows, which is probably well past their use by date anyway, but also better quality window frames, so thermally broken window frames. There's some restrictions on wall and roof colours and some smaller details, but that's probably going to be the major change. Whether the windows get smaller is another matter. There's always a constant trade-off with that sort of thing as well. But certainly that's going to have a fairly significant impact on the cost. There's a whole of home energy use budget. So for the first time, we're now starting to look at some of the fixtures inside the house as well. So the air conditioning and heating systems need to have minimum levels of efficiency in them as well. And they can trade off each other, but there are minimum levels that are required there, which is a good thing as well. The hot water systems, the lighting, and if there's a swimming pool, the spa pumps associated with those facilities as well. So they'll come together as a major equation to be met where a limit is to be met. So they can trade off of each other, but there's certainly, for the first time, a limit on the amount of power being used on those sorts of appliances as well. On-site renewables can be used to offset some of the extra energy use of those appliances, and we're probably seeing that anything with a swimming pool will probably need some sort of on-site renewable energy on it as well. There are enhanced condensation management provisions in the code, and this is one where we're starting to gnash our teeth on at the moment. And so there's been a lot of discussion around this as well. So we're starting to see some changes which are starting to deal with those sort of issues there. So there's ventilation for roof spaces to make sure there's plenty of drying air going through roof spaces. There are changes to sarking requirements. There are changes to, additional requirement of roof ventilation. And of course, the big one is that a move to more vapor permeable membrane that are used to wrap our buildings. Class 3 or 4 membranes for climate zones 4 to 8, which is for us in Victoria, is most of Victoria except that northeast area, drier and hotter areas in the northeast on the other side of the Great Dividing Range. And what that means is that we're starting to use a material that's a bit more like Gore-Tex rather than a little crappy bit of aluminium foil. So a material that's more like Gore-Tex, so it'll allow the building to breathe. It'll allow water vapor out of the building, but it'll stop the rain coming in. So a bit like our Gore-Tex jackets, lets the sweat out, but stops us getting wet. So that's probably quite a major one there, and we're hoping that that'll help to alleviate some of that vapor movement through the walls as well, making sure we're not getting interstitial condensation occurring. All our vents and ceiling fans will need to be vented out of the buildings. There are minimum flow rates for exhaust fans, so they'll go straight out, not into the roof space anymore, which is a bit of a worry when I look at my house. But certainly, they're going straight out, and again, just removing more of that water vapor that's getting in the roof spaces. And there's some fabulous pictures around of very wet roofs as well. So that if there's a provision for ventilation in laundries and bathrooms containing a dryer, and they also should be vented out anyway. So those sorts of things. As I mentioned, condensation is really important, and it's something that we can control a little bit, but a lot of it is due to occupant behaviour as well. So everything we do in the house produces water vapor. So cooking, washing, exercising, drying our clothes inside. I get phone calls from builders building houses in very kind of cold climates, telling us that their clients have got issues of condensation on their windows. And it's probably got a fire going and drying all the clothes inside because it's been raining for 3 weeks. So that might have a little bit to do with it. So the issue is we're trying to control something that's largely driven by occupant behaviour as well. But we're certainly starting to see that. There's a bit of information out there, and we're trying to get more information out there all the time. It'll be a major push for us in the next couple of months to get more information out to the industry about how they protect themselves from this sort of thing. We already have a flyer that we hand out in what we call our handover kits. So when a builder hands over his house to his client, he gives them a little kit, and there's some information in there about condensation management there for them as well. For class 2 buildings, so apartments, those sorts of things, we're starting to see some new ideas there. So the idea that thermal bridges aren't a great thing. The photo there is of an extension being built about 5 steps from my house. Architectural architectural design signs all over the building, but a really basic thermal bridge there, if you like. The steel frame of that extension being connected to an external frame there that a veranda's going to pretty much a small roof cover was going to sit on that, a veranda was going to sit on that. So in the summertime, when the temperature's 38, 40 degrees out there, that's a north facing veranda. That's just going to travel straight through those beams, straight through the insulation into the house, really basic sort of stuff. But, we're still doing it in that was 2021. We're also starting to think a little bit ahead of time and starting to design and build our buildings so that we're ready for the changes. So putting in the provision to have charging stations fitted in commercial buildings and apartments as well. So that's really important that we're running that wiring so it's ready to go as required. So nothing would be worse than trying to run some pretty heavy duty electrical wiring through some of these buildings once they've been finished. So that's really important. And I know even some of our members, and Jeremy's here tonight talking about that, some of our members are already having that conversation with their clients as well, whether they want to run some wiring for future connection for those sorts of things to their garages as well. So that's really important. We had our judging of our Best Sustainable Building Construction Awards earlier this year, and every building we looked at that was entered in that category had already put in charging stations for electric vehicles. So we're certainly well on the way there. And I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the things we're seeing. That, a little bit of a positive note, I guess, that we're already starting to see this. We're talking about sort of meeting emission reduction requirements in the very near future. We're already building homes that are zero carbon. So these homes are already producing more energy than they're using. They're not that expensive. They're not that fancy. They're not that, it's not difficult to do. We've got quite a few of our members working on these sorts of houses, and these are kind of and these aren't boutique builders either. They're pumping out quite a few of these houses every year. So it's affordable. They're building them at about 7 stars. We know we can do them at about 6.5 to make them carbon positive, but these ones that are about 7.3 stars. This one comes with a 5 kilowatt system and a battery. It's all electric, and that's the other change we're starting to see, that most of these houses now are all electric. And I was talking before, this is my first year. Our old gas central heater died at the during the summer this year. It came on by itself for some reason and wouldn't go off. So I disconnected the whole thing totally. And this was the first year we relied on split systems on the wall for heating our house. And our bills come in about $700 less just this winter around that sort of change. So a massive change, So yeah, whether we do it for the environment, whether we do it for our pocket is another matter. But SJD homes are bringing these in. They're costing that extra cost at about $10,000 to $12,000, so not a huge cost for that sort of thing. Another one is Arden Homes. And again, they're beautiful. They're beautiful, really beautiful homes. We're not making, we're not scaling these houses down. We're not, living in, Hessian homes as we sometimes refer to them. They don't look like kind of sustainable homes, if you like. They're not made out of mud brick or hempcrete. We had a presentation on hempcrete at our conference the other week, which is great. It's a beautiful product, but they don't look like that. These are kind of your run-of-your-mill homes. These are at about 8 stars. Again, about 5 kilowatts of solar on them. They produce more energy than they use. Again, very cost effective. Quite compares easily with other houses on the market at about that level. And again, an all electric house. So again, we're starting to see those changes. Look, and I just want to finish some of the things we're doing. Tuan spoke about the Green Living Program. We've been running that since 2007 inside Master Builders in Victoria here. We trained about 1,000 people in that program, and then we changed it and we run that program as part of our course where when tradespeople come to us and want to become builders, they do a certificate in building and construction. And we've run that as part of that course for probably 10 years now as well. So we've probably put about another 1,000 people through that course as well. The idea is we're trying to build the capacity of industry. So it's not just about standing there and saying, no, we don't want this. It's about trying to show how people can do these things and, how they can future-proof themselves and their business, but also protect themselves. And again, that sort of idea around that. We just finished a series of workshops in partnership with Sustainability Victoria. Jeremy, who's here, presented at that as well. But just taking people through these sorts of things, showing them how they can do it, showing them that it's not that hard, and bringing that change to the workforce, if you like, to the industry. It's well and good to sit there and point your finger at them and tell them why aren't they doing this, but we want to sort of take them and lead them into knowing that they can do this thing and it's not that hard. And there's actually quite a really good market out there, as we know that Metricon and Henley sort of putting products out in this market now as well. It means that there's actually a real market for it coming along as well. So thanks. I'm just going to leave it at that. Sorry, this was what just briefly. And the other really important part is where do we go from here? We've got a whole lot of sort of crappy existing stock out there. Mine is one of them. 1930s weatherboard on stumps, insulation in the roof. Probably most of the walls don't. So that's where we've got to sort of target and really start to making a change towards our energy use in the next few years. And this won our award last year in terms of our best sustainable home winner, an existing house. Number one, they kept the existing structure. So first sustainability tick, they didn't just knock it down and throw it away. But 1870s townhouse, the other thing I liked is they kind of kept the look of it. It kind of fits in with its suburb. They haven't knocked it down and built a lovely steel monstrosity to go in there, black steel monstrosity to go in there. They kept the look of the place in there. So tick number 2. They double glazed it. They added insulation. They put in north facing access, not windows, but high skylights. Reduced materials and waste. And increased the star rating for something that was probably, I think it was about 1.5 to 2 stars when they started with it. And it's now rating at around about 7 on NatHERS. So, a really good result there for the sort of things that this is the sort of next step of what we're looking at. And we do have, Jenny talked about passive house. We've got a bunch of really clever, smart builders out there building passive house. I'm hearing about more and more of these projects all the time. When I first heard about passive house a few years ago, I thought, yeah, that's nice, but I don't think we'll see it in Australia. We're seeing products like this all the time. What I liked about this house is it actually looks like a real house. Some of the passive houses, you kind of take, it's an acquired taste, I think. But this one I quite like because it looks like a normal home. But yeah, that's sort of something. And I'll leave it there. Thanks very much.